Hello, my name is Becky and welcome to my first YouTube video here on RMD Handmade Cards. Today I'm going to show you how to create a stamp background using aqua markers instead of your ink pads. This is such a quick and easy watercolour technique and great if you're not so confident in colouring. As you can see, I didn't want to waste any of my beautiful stamp background, so I used the scraps to decorate inside the card too. So let's get started. We will need a 6x6 Kraft card blank, a piece of white card for inside, a piece of linen card for your matte and layers. Today we're going pinks and purples. A piece of watercolour cardstock cut to 6.5 by 6.5. I've already stamped my sentiment out on some white card, a strip of linen card for decoration, a Crafter's Companion duet ink pad in vintage Merlot, and from the Nature's Garden Hydrangea collection, the Spectrum Noir TriColour Aqua Pens, and the Hydrangea stamp set. This has got to be one of my favourite stamp sets. Now, let's get to the fun bit. I've put my watercolour card onto my stamping platform. As you may have noticed, I've cut it larger than we need. This is so we can trim it down later. Take your stamp and place it randomly onto your card. You want to make sure the stamp goes off the edge so you get a continuous pattern throughout the background. Once your stamp is on your platform, you want to take your Spectrum Noir TriColour Aqua Pen and start to colour the stamp. For the flowers, I'm using rose pink, magenta and orchid. Always start with your lightest colour first. Don't worry so much where you colour, it's totally random. My other top tip is to use the side of your pen nib. To do this, hold your pen further back than normal and this will ensure you don't ruin the nib. Once we've finished colouring the flowers, we're going to take our Spectrum Noir TriColour Aqua Pen in olive and moss and do exactly the same. Usually for the leaves, I tend to put the lighter colour in the middle and then do the darker colour on the outsides. Now your stamp is all coloured in, you need to get your water spritzer and heat gun. Spritz your stamp lightly about 3 times. You don't want to drench your stamp, but just have enough water on it so the colours mix. When you are ready, stamp down onto your watercolour card. Grab your heat gun and dry it off. This will make sure your ink doesn't move anymore. Before stamping again, I use my microfiber cloth to take away any excess water and ink. Lift your stamp and dry your stamping platform too. This will make sure the stamp doesn't move around on the next turn. Now all we need to do is repeat the process until we have a fully stamped background. As you can see, on this part I haven't quite pressed down enough. This is one of the reasons why I love to use my stamping platform. If you miss a bit, you can always go back and re-stamp the image. The other great thing about using the stamping platform is if you aren't stamping the full image, you can just colour the parts that you need. As you can see, I didn't quite colour all of the image, so I went back in with my pen. If your stamp is too wet, then I do suggest drying it slightly with your microfiber cloth before you go back in. Now we have all our background stamped, it's time to start our colouring. I've placed my background onto my craft mat and spritzed some water in the corner. Because we have used aqua pens, the water will draw the colour out from the stamped image. As you can see, I've started adding water to the leaves and I will concentrate on them throughout the background before moving on to the flowers. This is because I don't want the pinks and greens to mix as they will start to look muddy. Before moving on to the next leaf or flower, it is important to dry off the water. This will ensure the colour is locked into place. One thing I love about this watercolour technique, it's a lot more forgiving, so you don't need to worry about going outside the lines. Before you move on to the flowers, change the water so it's nice and clean. As you can see, because we've used different colours to colour in the flower petals, as you add the water, they blend together to give us that more traditional hydrangea look. Now we are just going to continue to colour in the flower petals. If at any point you feel the need to add some more colour, just simply scribble onto your craft mat with your pen and pick it up with your paintbrush to add it in. Once you have finished painting your background, it's time to trim it down. I've trimmed mine to roughly 5.5 by 5.5 as I will use my linen cardstock as a matted layer. Don't throw the scraps away as these are great for decorating inside your card. Now I'm going to take my duet ink pad from Crafter's Companion in Vintage Merlot and add some colour around the edges. This will just help the background not be so stark and white. I am using my blending brush for this part, but you can use any of your ink blending tools as they will give you the same effect. Don't forget to add some ink to your scrap piece for inside the card too. There's one final finishing touch I love to do, and that is to add some splatter. For this I'm using my Spectrum Noir TriColour Aqua Pen in Orchid. You simply scribble onto your craft mat and add a little water and splatter it onto your background. This enhances the watercolour look and helps mask any imperfections. Now we have dried the background, let's take a look at it. I love how it turned out, but now we need to make it into our card. For the sentiment, I have used the Charming Sentiments from the Nature's Garden Hydrangea collection. I've simply stamped it out with some black ink onto some white card, and then found a circle die from my stash. This one has torn edges for some extra detail, but you can use any die you like. Once you have die cut it out, keep your die in position as we're going to lightly blend some more of the vintage Merlot around the edges, just like we did on the background. Don't worry about getting ink on your die, it can be washed off later, it won't damage it. And now for the big reveal. Because we left the die in place, it's acted like a stencil, so it's left a nice white border around the edge. So let's stick the card together. I've cut my linen card down to make a nice matten layer for the background. As you can see, I've used my tape pen and my wet glue. This is because I always have the fear that I won't be able to stick it down straight, so the wet glue just gives you that extra little bit of wriggle time. For sticking the background down, I've used my tape pen and wet glue. If you find the watercolour card has buckled slightly from the water, then you can always use red liner tape. This is a little stronger and will help keep it flat. I wanted to add some extra decoration, so I've cut a strip of matching linen card and added some twine to it. For the blue card I did use some ribbon, so use anything from your crafty stash. As you can see, I use my mat to line up the strip to ensure it's in the middle. I also use my T ruler to ensure it's straight. You don't have to decorate inside your card, but because we've used a craft card blank, I always think it's nicer to have a white liner inside to write your message on. If you wanted, you could always stamp a sentiment on it too. I didn't want to waste any of our beautiful stamp background, so I've added the waste strip from where we trimmed it down earlier. You don't have to put it on the side, you could always put it across the top or bottom, wherever you like. I've added a little too much glue, so it's oozed out the sides. This is one of the reasons I love to use all-purpose glue. If you rub it, it will rub off and leave no marks. Now to add the sentiment. I've added some foam pads to the back and I'm using some tacky glue just so I've got time to move it around if I need to. As you can see, I line my card up on my mat again and take my T ruler just to ensure that the sentiment is stuck straight and in the middle. For some finishing touches, I added some flowers and some leaves, and of course some gems to the corner of the sentiment. Now we have finished, I thought I would show a side-by-side view of the blue and the purple version we've created today. I really love how they've turned out, and I hope you give this watercolour technique a go yourself. Thanks so much for watching my first video here on YouTube. All the items I have used are listed in the description below. Please hit that like and subscribe button, and I really hope to see you all again soon.